Full disclaimer. I am doing something right now I've literally never done before. And so I am going to try and do a recording of myself on Zoom while I record my podcast and my podcast audio stuff. So let's see if this works. So one of the things that I've realized is that as an entrepreneur, we must have a growth mindset at all times. And currently, I am doing a 30 days of intentional social media posting. It's a 30-day challenge of learning how to post with intentionality. And I got to tell y'all how this is going. I know. So you guys over here that are watching this is behind the scenes. And so now I need to input some music into my podcast because I start by talking and then I import music and then I start talking again. So you guys are seeing this go down in real time and we're gonna see if it works. I'm not sure if it'll work or not, but we're gonna see. I'm kind of excited. Like I've gotten very, very excited to see if this is actually going to work. So let me pull this music in to the podcast. And then we are going to see what happens, right? So let's see. Okay, what I can tell you is that Zoom froze for a second. Of intentional social media posting. It's a 30-day challenge of learning how to post with intentionality. And I got to tell y'all how this is going. Okay, so I played with the pause on Zoom so that I could see what would happen if I like pause the Zoom and then come back in. I don't really know what's going to happen. We're going to see it in real time, but we are going to pick back up on the podcast. Okay, so let's have a conversation about what it means to curate content with intentionality. One of the things that I had to realize was when I'm creating social media content, we live in this right now, more overconsumption world. And that is not helpful down the road. As someone that has had to rebrand because I changed as a person, rebrands are number one, a lot of work. It's a lot of time and it can be costly, right? So if we are thinking about who am I evolving into and how can I show up as my most authentic self right now that serves who I'm evolving into, that requires you to think about what you're putting out. Okay. This may be contrary to some social media gurus. That's okay. I'm not here to create content for them. I'm here to create content for an audience of people who are interested in me. They are interested in my growth. They are interested in watching me grow out loud. And so this is why I say that. If you've been a long time listener, this podcast started as the Baking Mama podcast almost 2 years ago. When I launched the Baking Mama podcast, actually 2.5 years ago, when I launched the Baking Mama podcast in 2020, that's what I had rebranded to. So I was going from Chef Kimmy Who and Co., which was my life as a celebrity pastry chef here in the Atlanta area, what I was doing with my children, because I also had a brand called the Momager Lifestyle, where my children, when they were younger, were involved in the arts. Marshall was doing all sorts of things, you know, Journey to Broadway, like that was our hashtag, the Road to Broadway or Journey to Broadway. And then my daughter was modeling. And within a couple of months of Cherry modeling, we were invited to New York Fashion Week. And so I was like journaling this and we were living it out loud. It was very much so all over social media. If you wanted to know what we were doing, you needed to find us. Like so much so, my mother created social media just so that she could keep up with us. Because whenever people would call me, they couldn't figure out where we were, what we were doing, and we were on the road, we were in the car, we were in another state, we were, at photo shoots or getting new headshots or having kids fitted for clothes. At one point, Marshall was opening for Arrested Development here locally, like Grammy Award winning Arrested Development. Marshall Ware Mabry IV was opening at 15 years old, right? And so when you have children who are involved in the entertainment industry and you're doing all these things, people are watching you and they're like, oh my God, how are you doing this? And so as I was living my life out loud with that brand, it garnered attention. I remember at one point when I was interviewed by BuzzFeed, and it was talking about Momager Lifestyle. Like, what does it look like as a parent when you're juggling having a model, having an actor, and then you yourself are on, Bravo, and you're speaking at places and you're teaching people and you're doing all these things. Like, what does that look like? And so that was a brand that I had, right? So we went from Chef Kimmy Who and Co. And I was also married at the time, right? So I was talking about, how do you do this while married? How do you do this while on a budget? And so it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing. So then 2020, the marriage is dissolving itself. And I was like, well, what do we call this now? I was coming out of Chef Kimmy Who because I didn't feel like the brand fit me anymore. It was no longer serving me. I didn't know how to make it. Like I didn't know how to breathe life into it. And honestly, I just didn't want to. And one of my toxic traits, historically, my toxic trait was, when I'm done, I'm done. And I don't think anything of it. I just kind of walk away from things and move on. And that I kind of regret that a little bit right now. That was a toxic trait about me with a lot of things. If I was done with the relationship, I was done. When I was done with the job, I was done. If I was done with a friendship, I was done. And didn't think anything else about it. But I did that with the blogs, and I literally like just logged in one night and just deleted the whole blog, didn't keep the content, nothing. And I kind of regret that a little bit because it was really, really great content from some really incredible contributors that could have lived on. If I could go back to myself and talk to myself about it, we would not have deleted it, but I digress. So when I rebranded from Chef Kimmy Who, I moved into the Baking Mama. It felt great. It felt like it fit at the time. I was still trying to figure out, what does my life look like divorced? That was not something I ever imagined for myself. When my ex-husband and I got married, we made an agreement that divorce would never be something we would play with. It's not something that was going to be an option for us. And when divorce had to become an option, we fought through it for many years. But when divorce became the only option, I then had to think about, who am I? Right? I went through an existential crisis, and I went through an identity crisis, honestly, of who is Kimberly Houston after being Kimberly Bryant. And so, I never looked at it as starting over. I looked at it as starting anew with, a lot of information, with a lot of experiences that would inform what would happen as we move forward. And so in that time, I was really, thinking a lot about like a Southern Belle type of platform, because I love sweet tea, right? So I was thinking about like a Southern Belle platform, very close to like the Pioneer Woman. I love the Pioneer Woman. And so that's what I was like, okay, yeah, the Baking Mama, it was a beautiful concept. All of the URLs were available. The Etsy shop is still called the Baking Mama. Because I was a mom who baked and I homeschooled my kids, and I live in Georgia, I live in the South. It fit, right? It was something that, if you thought about me, it worked. And so then the Baking Mama did not serve me anymore. Almost, well, I'm going to say May of 2022 was when I realized the Baking Mama no longer fit. It wasn't going to serve me in a way that I needed it to. I did not make a decision to becoming a life coach until May of 2022. Prior to that, I had dibbled and dabbled as Chef Kimmy Who in being inspirational to other people. I was not shy about talking about my story. I was not shy about talking about infertility with my husband. I was not shy about talking about how to juggle momager life while doing your own thing. I wasn't shy about talking about any of those things. And so I had a lot of closed door conversations with other women who were having these same issues. In May of 2022, I literally, I went to Miami for a week. I was there on assignment. I wasn't there on vacation. I was there on assignment. And during that assignment, I was just there. I had started my healing journey. I had been going through it for a minute. We'd been divorced for a year at this point. And so I was still, who are you? Who is Kimberly Houston evolving into? And I was like, I think I might want to go back to school. And I was really, really grappling with, I want to be a life coach, but what kind of life coach, right? When people say, oh, I homeschool, I say, oh, what type of homeschooling do you do? And because other homeschool parents understand, we don't all do this the same. We unschool over here. We're not homeschooling, nor do we school at home. We unschool. My children are the ones in charge of what they wanted to learn. And so everyone doesn't do that. Some people have curriculum, they have all sorts of things. We didn't do that. And it has served us well, right? So what works for me doesn't work for you. And so when I decided I wanted to be a life coach, I was driving back from Miami. Throughout the week while we were there, it was the first time that I could feel energy in my body on this level. I've felt energy before. I've done speaking things before. This was different. This was very, very different. The way I felt when I left Miami was something I had never felt before. And so because I had a 12-hour drive back, we left out very early in the morning. It was maybe 5 a.m. when we left out. And so, yeah, it was pretty early. Starbucks wasn't open yet. And I was like, okay, how do I feel in my body? And in my body, I could feel the energy of every person that I had encountered during my stay in Miami. And some of the energy was good. Some of the energy was resistant. Some of the energy was super hyper. Some of the energy was very low. Some of the energy was confused. Some of the energy was chaotic, right? And it was the first time that I had felt this. This is actually the first time I'm even talking about what I felt during that time. And so I was sitting with this that entire ride back. And I was like, what is this? What am I feeling right now? And I was immediately taken to a conversation with my mother. And my mother told me a couple of years ago that when I was 4 or 5 years old, one of her coworkers looked at me and then told my mother that there was something in me that I not even on a prophetess level, but on a visionary level, there was something there, that there was something different. There was something inside of me that needed to be honed. And to be super transparent, my mother was not okay with that. And so that's just not something that was ever brought to my attention until much later in life. And so I've known this information in the back of my head for a couple of years, that this is something that was told to my mother. This kid is a seer. There's something going on here. I recognize it in my own child. My daughter is a seer for sure. Cherry says stuff and I'm like, how do you know that? Well, I was the same way, but mine is more energy. So to keep this story on track, I'm dealing with this energy. I'm driving back from Miami. I'm trying to figure out, what does this mean? What is it? What's happening? And then I went, man, is this what a life coach does? Does a life, I was like, I know this wasn't religion. At that time, I was still deconstructing from the church. And I've got probably a couple of podcast episodes about that, but this isn't that podcast. So I was still deconstructing from the church. I still had my own feelings about religion. Christianity and things of the sort, which is weird because my son's father is a bishop. I was going to be a first lady. Moving on. So I was still deconstructing from the church. I knew this wasn't like religious, but it was spiritual. And I was like, what is this? And then I was like, do life coaches do this? So I kind of looked up life coaching. And then like the life coach school came up because that's a thing. And I was like engaging with her content. And I was like, yeah, this isn't it. Right. Like I wasn't feeling it. That wasn't it. So I did another Google search and I was like, I don't want to really talk to people about their current life, right? Like I don't want my focus to be where you are. I want to talk to you about where you're going. I'm more concerned with the things you should be doing right now to get you to your destiny. And so I was like, well, what is that? And I was like, well, that's transformation. So I typed in transformation coach. And on the first page of Google, the Wright Graduate University for the Realization of Human Potential pops up. And I was like, what the hell? What does that mean? And so I sent, an email, started talking to the people in their office. They said, like, they had these certifications. And I was like, oh, I want this certification and this one and this one and this one. And I was like, yo, like, I want all of these certifications. How long would that take? And the lady said, well, you may as well just do the master's program. And I was like, but I already have a master's, so do I need to do the doctorate? And she was like, no, you have to go through our master's program in order to do our doctoral program, because the doctoral program is what was really speaking to me. And I was like, okay, fine, whatever, not really thinking about it. And so I started this journey. Okay, mind you, all this happened while I was driving back from Miami. In a week, I was like already doing the paperwork to be enrolled in school, writing my essay of intent, like why did I want to go here? What was I hoping to get out of it? Things of the sort. And so then this journey began. So I started class in July. And I can honestly tell you that between July and now, I am a completely different person, right? Which means that anyone who engaged with my social media content prior to 9 months ago knew a very different version of who I am today. So if you've been engaging with me for years, like I've been on social media for years, if you've been watching this journey, the trajectory of my life has changed multiple times, like multiple times it has changed. And so I'm like, how do I best serve the audience I need to have in the future? That's what I'm thinking about right now. I kept getting stuck on how do I like reinvent myself? Like how do I what do I do? Do I start a whole new Instagram page? Do I start a new TikTok page? Like what do I do to grow my numbers? How do I do this? How do I do that? And here's what I can tell you. I have over 10,000 followers on TikTok. I blew up on TikTok because people were watching me chop up Oreos. That was one of the first ones that went viral. And then there was one of me decorating Christmas cookies. And it's literally just like me piping the outline of a cookie. I don't even finish the cookie in this one. And it went viral. That happens to me a lot. I have currently on my cookie school on Instagram, it's still viral. And it's me decorating a gingerbread cookie, like sped up. The things that people consume are interesting. So here's what it taught me. Going viral isn't the goal. That's not the goal. I've grown my social media because people are watching the same thing over and over again, right? Like you can trick the algorithm. You can give them 7 seconds of something that just keeps starting over, and people are just so mesmerized by it, they keep watching it a lot. And so that makes you go viral. Well, just because you went viral on a video doesn't mean you've had influence over the audience of people who are coming to you. It also doesn't mean that the algorithms of any of these platforms are showing the audience that you actually need to be talking to your content. Viral doesn't equal influence. Okay, let's be real clear. Viral does not equal influence. And so I've been really, really thinking about that. And this past weekend, I already knew I was going to do a 30-day social media challenge. March with Intention. The cuteness of March with Intention was too much not to do it. So we are doing March with Intention. It started today. I was super excited. I didn't go to bed till 4 a.m. because I was so hyped about having an opportunity to share the things that I've learned over the past 9 months with the intended audience, right? People who engage with Chef Kimmy who know me as one person. And so I've been able to like throw up stuff from back in the day and people love it. But that's not who I am, right? Now, granted, I am a chef. And so that's never going away, which means food is always going to be a part of my brand, regardless to what I do. Regardless, food is going to be a part of the brand. So then when I was sitting with, well, the Chef Kimmy Who was more about teaching kids how to do stuff and doing fun stuff and whatever. How do I make this work? And so the ladies that are in my mentorship, that are in my coaching group, they're the ones who started the Coach Chef Kim movement. And in the beginning, I wasn't okay with that. I just was not okay. That cohort 1 from last summer from my photography classes, they started Coach Chef Kim. And I was like, that's doing the most, right? Like that's doing a lot. But the more that we've done this, when I talked to some people at school, I was like, y'all, I can't put Coach Chef Kim on LinkedIn. Like it's cute and catchy, but like I can't put that on LinkedIn. And so one of the guys that was he was about to finish the program and he was like, well, it was over lunch. And he said, but Kimberly, if we think about what you represent, he was like, just in a little bit of time that I've been getting to know you, you represent food. So chef. He was like, you love seeing transformation in women. You're a coach. And he was like, but you don't compete with people. You are out here in a lane of your own and you're forever bringing other people into it. He was like, community. So Coach Chef Community became the 3 pillars of my life. And it wasn't until he brought that to me that Coach Chef Kim made absolute sense, right? I am a coach, I am a chef, and Kimberly believes in community over competition. And so that's how we got here, right? Well, okay, so now I know these things about myself, and now I'm like, I need to create content that's gonna, support that. So my content is transformational. My content should make you think. My content should help you in your life. Not only help you, but I also look at things generationally. Yeah. So I want my content to not only influence how you move in this world, but how your children move in this world. Also, not only how your children move in this world, but how do your parents move in this world? How do your friends move in this world? How do any of your friends or anyone who you are in community with, how are they moving in this world based off being around you? And if you are someone that is around me, it's real hard for you not to change. It's hard for you not to transform. It's hard for you not to be inspired. If there's resistance to that, you remove yourself from me, but I don't remove myself from you because I am who I am and I stand in that and I show up authentically. I have a whole rant podcast episode about somebody telling me they didn't think I was authentic. And I stood on it and I still stand on it. I'm very authentic because I know who I am. Within this 30-day challenge of marching with intention, it is my hope and my goal and my vision that anyone who is joining us, that they learn who they are, that understanding who you are and who you are evolving into are important. Who I am right now is not who I plan on being in 5 years, right? That's a fixed mindset. My growth mindset will not allow me to stay where I am right now. And I love me, right? Like I love where I'm at. I love influencing people. I love inspiring people, but I know that I am destined to speak to a larger audience. I know that I have to do these podcast episodes so that other people can find me. I know that my podcast now needs to be on YouTube so that other people can find me. I know that I need to have shorts and clips on Instagram and TikTok so that other people can find me. My goal, I'm not going to say my goal, my purpose on this earth is to transform the lives of women who are on their entrepreneurial and healing journey simultaneously. That is who my audience is. I have already had multiple visions that have been confirmed by other people, no less, about me being in arenas and people having my books. It's continuous. There's continuous confirmation, right? That this is what I'm supposed to be doing. It was spoken almost 40 years ago to my mother, but it's just now coming to fruition through me. And so I understand at this phase in my life that my yes is attached to someone else's breakthrough. So if I don't do the things now, somebody else's bloodline is not going to be changed because I made excuses. That doesn't sit well with me. It just, that's a real big responsibility that I'm like, nope, I'm not going to sit with that one, right? So I do my part. I show up, even when I don't feel like it. I show up anyway. And so I started thinking about who inspires me. Whose content do I engage with on a regular basis? And there are 4 women that stand out. And I say this all the time. Well, the first time I said it was back in August when we had to introduce ourselves for the first time at school. And they were like, who inspires you? Like if someone had to say who you remind them of, who would they say? And I said, well, I'm the combination of 4 people: Oprah Winfrey, Michelle Obama, Brene Brown, and Tabitha Brown. I am the combination of those 4 women. That's a big responsibility. Those 4 women are trailblazers. They are visionaries. They are thought leaders. They are influencers in the way they influence your life. They influence your decision. They have people look at their lives in a different way. They're not rescuers, right? They are not rescuing people from themselves. They are inspiring people to take action to rescue themselves. And so one of the things I have had to deal with over the last couple of months is becoming a rescuer, a retired rescuer. I want to fix you. I want to fix your problems. I want to fix the dude I'm in a relationship with. Oh, I'm in love with his potential. Okay, I don't have time. All right, I need you to come whole and heal. That is the journey that Coach Chef Kim is on. You can't step to me and you're not whole and heal. You need to know how to comfort yourself. I'm not going to do it for you, right? Even my children, right? I don't parent my kids. I coach them, and I've been coaching them for at least 10 years because I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to baby you, right? Like you need to learn how to figure things out for yourself. It's going to make you a better human. And so I'm doing the same thing now with people who want to coach with me, right? Like I can't rescue you. If you want a business strategy call where I'm giving you my ideas when you tell me your problem, cool. But guess what? I can't execute for you. I can't. I would rather teach you how to think like I think. I would rather show you to look at your life the way that I'm looking at your life objectively. I know you're stuck in the middle of it, but let me help you come up out of you. You know what I'm saying? I need you to be in your body. I need you not be in the middle of the chaos. I need you in your body looking objectively at what is happening in your life so that you can make a better decision. Because a lot of times we put ourselves into situations, we break our own hearts. You allow your thoughts to go on a rampage, and those thoughts will break your heart. They will make you be stressed out. You can't do the things you want to do because your brain is taking over. Okay. And so I'm like, all right, how do I create content for that woman? How do I create content for people who are on the journey? I can't drag you into your healing. I don't want to drag you into your healing, but I will co-voyage with you. That's a term from school. I'll co-voyage with you, right? I will walk hand in hand with you on this journey. When you tell me we need to stop, we're going to stop, but I'm not going to let you sit there and just like wither away. We're not going to do that. If we need to stop and rest, we can stop and rest, because we're going to honor our body and we're going to honor the space and time that we are in right now. But if you stay there and it's time for me to keep moving, I will continue to go on with my journey, right? And so I was like, okay, how do I help people create intentional content? Well, this is how. I'm going to be as transparent as I humanly can be, because that's who I am authentically. That has gotten me in trouble at other parts of my life. There's one particular incident that absolutely has to go inside of my book, where my transparency broke my marriage, because somebody else had something to say about my transparency and my husband didn't say anything about it. And I am 100% positive that that is the day. That was the first crack. You know how like your foundation can crack, and if you don't repair it, that crack gets bigger and just keeps growing. That's the day of the crack. I'll never forget it. And it's literally because somebody else read something I posted on the internet and they didn't like it. They ain't like it. I didn't write it for them, but they didn't like it. And so that has given me experience in when people say, so what do you do when, you get trolls, or when people say things to you? If the message wasn't for them, the message wasn't for them, but did it land with your intended audience? I'm 100% positive if I had released the married single mom when I wanted to, it would have landed with the women it should have landed with. But the grace for that season expired, right? And when the grace for a season in your life expires, you don't have a choice but to move on. I can't mourn the fact that God told me to do something many, many years ago. And because I was afraid, because I didn't want to be chastised, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I have the content. It's still sitting on my computer. There's a whole file of it, but I never published it. I didn't feel comfortable posting my transparency anymore after that moment, because I could no longer trust the people who were in my life. And so when we go through things like that, right, we can disassociate, which is what I did. But guess what happened? As a transformation life coach who was going through a program where transformation is required of you, I had to face it. I had to deal with the fact that the trust was broken in my marriage, that the trust was broken in my spirituality, that the trust was broken from the people that I held dearest to me at that time in my life. Well, because that trust was broken, do you want to know what happened? I didn't trust people after that. People have asked me why I haven't dated in the last 3 years, because I don't trust that someone is going to handle my heart in the way that I need them to. Am I working on it? Absolutely. But am I going to go out here bleeding on other people until it's repaired? Absolutely not. Because I understand that about me and where I am at this leg of my journey, right? And so as we create this content for the next 30 days, you're going to look at what serves you. You're going to look at things that you may need to heal in the moment. I don't do superficial. So while I have some prompts and some content ideas, right? Like I give prompts and content ideas every week in this challenge. Some of this stuff is going to make you have to tap internally, right? When you have to write your vision and your mission statement, and they need to align with who you are evolving into, so that we can create content for the audience of people you may not know yet, or that may not know you yet. But in order for those people to find you, you got to create the content so they can find the content, so they can engage with you. See how that works? Yeah, when we do that, baby, you might have to deal with some hurt that you just totally walked away from. You might have to deal and understand that moving in silence is a trauma response, right? You might have to put your big girl panties on to accept that you have been traumatized at times in your life and nobody validated it. You might have to accept that your family of origin are the ones who are keeping you from your destiny. You might have to accept the fact that the person that you have vowed to spend the rest of your life with is not somebody you were ever intended to be with in the first place. But because you could not see yourself in the future and the things you should have been doing, you settled for what you had. Who knows? I don't know what's going to come up for you. I don't know. All I know is real transformation requires honesty, requires transparency, and requires a willingness to do the work. That is what it requires. So as we march with intention this month, it is my intent to connect with more women who are on their entrepreneurial and healing journey simultaneously, because this shit is a lot. Okay. I want to be inspiration for them. Throughout this next 30 days, you will be given permission to brag better. You will be given permission to not shy away from people giving you compliments. That was my homework assignment last week. You will be given permission to step into your greatness. Like, think about it, right? There are some people who know they are at the top of their game. There's no way you're going to tell me that Serena Williams or Beyonce don't know they the shit. You can't make me believe that these women don't know that they have set record-breaking numbers, that it's going to take so many years for somebody else to come behind them and do that, right? They've raised the bar. And when you understand that about yourself, that you are not average, that you are not regular, and that there is a calling on your life to do more. And until you tap into your purpose and your potential, there are bloodlines of people you haven't met yet that you need to change. Something that I say could end up being a story that somebody tells their grandchild in 30 years. In 30 years from now, something off of my podcast in 2023 breaks loose generational curses. Like, that's the responsibility I need you to understand that some of us have been graced with on this earth. And while I am not super religious, I have deconstructed from the church and I don't do that. It doesn't mean that I am thwarting my responsibility to continue to change lives. It doesn't mean that I don't understand that my mission and my purpose in life is to minister to other people. I don't have to minister from a pulpit. I'm also not going to tell you to go read the Bible. I don't have to do that. If that's how you feel the need to make your healing come forth, cool. Go read that book. But that's not mine. Right. And so for me, I am going to share my process. I am going to be creating meditations. My goal and my plan is that by the end of the month, I release a whole new podcast of meditations. This podcast is not going anywhere, but there will be an additional podcast that is nothing but meditations, because that's something that's been on my heart and something that I know to do, right? I am also working on a cookbook that's not just a cookbook, it's a book with a mission and a purpose. And I already know where I'm earmarking the donations from that particular book. It's been in my heart for the last 4.5 years. And so I've decided that now is the time for me to start curating the content for that book, which is going to require me to face some pain and face some challenges in my life, right? Like, I'm very aware that these are things that are going to have to happen. And so I have to create this series of things. I've got to create the meditation. I've got to create the books. I've got to create the digital content. I need to create some workbooks and even some coloring books, because I believe that is, particularly if you are an entrepreneur that is a mother, your kids are watching you. And so I want you to be equipped to be able to teach them as you are learning. Right. And so I have to create this content for kids. Like, I don't have a choice. These two things are they have to happen simultaneously. Yes, I can heal you as a mother, but how do I help you teach your children to not have to go through the things that you had to go through to get to this point? So those are all the things that I know I will be working on over the next 30 days, and I'm going to be doing it out loud. I'm going to be doing it in a way that people get to watch it. If it resonates with you, great, engage with the content. If it doesn't, that's cool. Move on. Share it with somebody else that it does, because I am here to build a community of people who are ready and willing to do the work. People who are dreamers, people who are daydreamers, night dreamers. I don't really care, as long as you understand that you are on this earth for a reason and there are some things that you need to do. That's what we're here for, right? So that is what the social media challenge is going to be for the next 30 days. It may include more podcast episodes more frequently. I haven't decided yet. We will figure it out. But today, this is what was on my heart. And so hopefully it makes a difference for somebody in life. But if not, that's okay. But if it did, share it with somebody. Send it to your mama. Send it to your auntie and them. Send it to your coworker. Send it to your best friend. It doesn't really matter. But share it with somebody. Okay? So until next time, stay asleep, my loves. I'll talk to you soon.